Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Angelina and today I'm going to be doing a book haul. So I have acquired quite a few books in the past couple of months, so I figured I would do a book haul and show them all to you. I'm not really sure if you can tell from my shelves, but they are kind of destroyed. I think it's mainly the lower shelf, but yeah, there's a lot of books I have to talk to you all about, so let's just get right into it. So the first book is I Must Betray You by Rita Sepetys. Rita Sepetys is one of my all-time favorite authors. I read this book in a weekly reading vlog, which I will have linked in the cards above and down in the description, but I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I absolutely adore this book. Anything that this author writes, I will read. Amazing. Would highly recommend. The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joanne He is one that one of my friends gifted me, so thank you to her. But this is a YA book following this girl who ends up stranded on this island with no memories of how she got there, and it's about her sister having to go and find her. But I just love this cover, and these end papers are so pretty. Just absolutely gorgeous. I have not read this one yet, but it is very high on my TBR. And then I have the omnibus of volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Noragami, and I have read this and I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to continue in this series. This one follows Yato, who is a stray god, and no one really knows who he is. So he has taken it upon himself to sort of do a bunch of random tasks for people in order to get his name out there, because he wants the glory and the fame and like temples built around him and stuff. And this is just a really fun manga series and I would highly recommend it. And then How to Win a Wallflower by Samara Parrish is one that I was sent from the publisher, so thank you to them. But this is a historical romance that's sort of brothers best friends, marriage of convenience, and I really enjoyed this one. He is basically returning to London after being in the US, but he sort of has money issues and she has a lot of money that she can give him to help him, but they have to be married. And yeah, just this was a fun one and I would recommend it. And then I have My Flawless Life by Yvonne Woon, and this is another arc I was sent from the publishers, so thank you to them. But this is a YA sort of suspense thriller type story about this girl who goes to an elite private school, and she sort of has taken it upon herself to help fix other people's problems. And then one day she gets a task that is really big and sort of over her head, but she is intrigued by it, so she takes it on. And yeah, this one was really good. I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely adored it and I would highly recommend this one. And then Act Your Age, Eve Brown is one that I read last year and loved, so I wanted a copy of it. But this is my favorite in the Brown Sister trilogy. But this is a Grumpy Sunshine, a romance book following these two characters who lives get entwined after she applies to work at his bed and breakfast, but ends up running him over with her car, and now she's working there with him, and it's just so fun. I love it. And this book also has autism rep. I love this book, would highly recommend it. And then I have Lizzie Blake's Best Mistakes by Maisie Eddings. I love Maisie Eddings, another one of my favorite authors. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. This is one that has ADHD rep and it's really well done. I loved it. But it follows our 2 main characters who end up having a one-night stand. This does have the accidental pregnancy trope, which is not one of my personal favorite tropes, but Maisie Eddings does such a wonderful job with it that I still love this book, even though it has a trope that is not one of my favorites. Yeah, I would highly recommend this one. This one is so fun. Next is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is another Grumpy Sunshine romance that I absolutely adored. I read this one back in 2018 and never got myself a physical copy of it. And I finally do. I definitely need to do a reread of this one because I don't remember too much about it, but it has to do with this girl who goes to Alaska to visit her father, and she gets in a relationship with a pilot. I loved this back then. Definitely want to do a reread, but I'm so glad that I finally own a copy of this. All right, and then The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is book 2 in the series. What is this series even called? The Kingkiller Chronicles. I am so excited to get to this one. I talk about this one in my 5-star predictions video, which I will have linked in the cards and down in the description below. But I loved the first book in this series, which was very unexpected. It has a lot of tropes that I don't normally enjoy in fantasy, but it just, for some reason, really works in this world. And I cannot wait to dive back in. But it is intimidating because it is a chunky book, but I'm excited nonetheless. Next is Take the Lead by Alexis Daria. This is another one that I have not read yet, but it is a fake dating type story where these two characters are partnered on this reality dance competition, and that just sounds amazing. I've heard great things about this one, and I cannot wait to get to this one. Next is The Plus One by Maisie Eddings. Again, my favorite author. This is her next book. It just recently released, and I cannot wait to get to this one. This might actually end up being the next book that I pick up, but I am so excited for this one. So this one is a childhood enemies to lovers story about these two characters who end up fake dating to this wedding that neither of them want to be at. And that is all I know. That is all I need to know. I am so excited for this. I cannot wait to pick this one up. I just know I'm going to absolutely love this book. And then I have volume 1 of Megumi and Tsugumi. This is one that one of my friends recommended to me when we were out at Books A Million just hanging out, and I decided to pick it up on her recommendation. And I really did not like this one. I want to say I gave it like 1.5 stars. It just really didn't work for me. This is an alpha and omega relationship, sort of bully, hate to love type deal. This was the first Omegaverse romance that I have ever picked up. And, you know, I don't think that the Omegaverse is something I am into. And I also am not the biggest fan of bully romances, but I am glad that I gave this one a try just to see what it was like. But yeah, not my favorite. And another book I cannot wait to read is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I know absolutely nothing about this book. I think it's dark academia. I know it's nothing like the Poppy War series. I have heard that. But I absolutely adored the Poppy War trilogy, and I cannot wait to read more from R.F. Kuang, so I am super excited to get to this one. And then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin is a literary horror novella. It's very short, but this one follows our main character who is sort of in this rehab place after being infected with this plague. And he's sort of dealing with the trauma that comes from this unusual plague that is occurring in the world. And I loved this so much. I still think about it every now and then, and this is just one that I would highly recommend. Bee People and the Bugs I Love by Frank Mortimer is a nonfiction book that I read last year and fell in love with. I am so glad to finally own a copy of this. I dabble in nonfiction, but I don't even remember what made me decide to go and pick this book up. But I am so glad that I did because I was enthralled the entire time reading this. And it just made me so happy. Like when I was reading it, I kept just telling like everyone I know just these random B facts, and I love that. And so yeah, I'm glad to finally own a copy. And then I have The Girl the Sea Gave Back by Adrienne Young, and this is one I read back in 2019, I believe, and I loved it. I was obsessed with this book. It is another one that I definitely need to reread because I don't remember too much about it. But I am glad I finally own a copy because this cover is gorgeous. Also, this one sort of completes my Adrienne Young collection of like all her YA she has published, along with another one that's in the stack. But I'm glad to finally be owning all of them because I love this author's YA stuff. Not so much her adult works that she has put out, but I do love her YA books. The Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust is another one that I had read and gave 5 stars, and I finally own a copy of. And this is a YA fantasy romance. It is a sapphic romance, but it follows this princess who is poisonous to the touch. And yeah, I'm glad to own this. I also really love this cover. Next is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I read this and loved it. I think I actually gave it 4.5 stars, but this was just so much fun and not really what I was expecting, but exactly what I wanted at the same time. And this is a second chance forced proximity romance following our main character who is running these sort of treasure hunt trail experiences, and her ex who goes with his group of friends to this experience, but he doesn't know that she's the one running it. And then like a bunch of things happen because this treasure turns out to be real and a bunch of people are after it. It's sort of like an action adventure type story at the same time while also being a romance, and it just worked really well. And yeah, I would highly recommend this one. And then I got this gorgeous signed special edition copy of The Christmas Witch by Dahlia Faulkner. I hated this book, which is really sad, and like the Goodreads ratings are terrible, as they should be, but yeah, this one did not work. I got this in a book box that was like a Christmas sort of one, but this was not good, which is so sad because it is so pretty and looks so nice on my shelves, but I hated it. It's a middle grade fantasy, but they are just so many things that aren't good with this. I will have my Goodreads review of it linked down below in case you are curious, but I was not a fan of this. All right, and the last 2 books are both books by authors I have mentioned already in this stack, but I have read both these already, and they were both amazing. So we have Saint by Adrienne Young. Again, I love Adrienne Young's young adult books. This was no exception. This is sort of a prequel to the Fable universe. This one is following Fable's dad, Saint, and sort of his life. If you have read Fable, you are probably a fan of Saint, and this book was so good. Highly recommend it if you are a fan of the Fable series. And then Salt to the Sea by Rita Sepetys. I love this book. This was the first book that I have ever read by Rita Sepetys, and it is what started my love for her books. I have just such core memories of this book. It was one of those books that really impacted me and has just stuck with me. I read this back in 9th grade. I was 14, and my book club at my school, this was one of the books we were reading and talking about, and I love this book so much. But this is a YA historical fiction set on the Wilhelm Gustloff. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly, I'm sorry, but it is the most deadliest shipwreck in history, and we are following all these points of views of all of these characters and like their whole life story of why they're getting on this ship. everything. It is amazing. It is the most beautifully written book ever. I would highly recommend it. But those are all of the books I had to talk about in this book haul. Hopefully this video isn't too long. There are so many of them. This is definitely the biggest book haul I have ever had, but so many of these are just favorites that I am finally acquiring a physical copy of. I do read a lot from my library, and I do get a lot of e-arcs through NetGalley, so there are so many times where I will have read this book in a different format, and I want to get my own copy to put on my shelves, and I'm just really happy every time I get some of these books. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment about whatever you feel like commenting, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!